values to valued culture. Here is your host, Will Scott, interviewing another CEO about leading culture in their company.
Today we have Will Scott, founder of Culture Czars, and in addition, he owned and grew two software companies. One of them is over 20 years old. I don't even know what software looked like 20 years ago, Will. He talks to CEOs that care about corporate culture, and his purpose is to help CEOs create environments so that employees love where they work and why they work. And who doesn't want that? Today's episode is brought to you by The Culture Fix, and this is Will's life's work on culture, boiled down to the most important aspects that you need to know. You can go to culturezars.com to pick up a workbook that will help you start implementing a great culture today. It's free, actually, and he's been sought after by many companies to create this, so he finally did. And we're going to talk about a few things. Part of his book, chapter 5 and 6, I kind of made some notes because some really interesting stories, and it starts off as decree, which is using your core values to inspire faith and trust, and talks about planning your launch party. Talk about one launch party that sticks out to you.
Again, a great one last year that we had was again with the Sabre organization, where we discerned their 4 core values, and then we brought them alive, with the heroes and with the posters. We then got them into the keep them sort of thriving part. And at the launch party, there's 4 siblings that run the company. So kind of made sense that they were each able to take one of the core values and talk about it. So we had the 4 leaders of the company, on the stage in front of 150 people, for all the employees. They stopped production for the, kind of at the end of the day, and brought everybody together. And began the meeting, of course, with the Rolling Stones' "Start Me Up," because in there is the line, "Making grown men cry," and Sabre's slogan is "Making grown men cry" since 1975. So yeah, began with music. We had everybody assembled. Of course, we had refreshments and things. But the meat of the presentation was each of the siblings delivering one of the 4 core values, where they talk about what it means. They use a story to exemplify each of the values, and of course went through what they meant by descriptive behaviors. And then they finished up the meeting with going into the award that we talked about in the last podcast, Jeremy. The 228 award is what it's called, and named for their father, Larry, who started the company with $228.
That's pretty amazing. When you think about it, that's what he used to start the company, and then they give this out as an award every month.
Yeah.
Pretty remarkable.
It's the great thing about it, and of course, people really value the financial, takeaway, but it also keeps the story alive, and it sort of links what they're doing today back to the founder and the legacy of the company. So they love it.
And part of what you talk about in the book too is, okay, this is great. Launch party is great. It gets people excited. But the real value is how you incorporate it into every day, right? Mm-hmm. So talk about how you incorporate it into meeting rhythms and how that works.
Yeah, absolutely. So you can't just put the poster on the wall and be done. You can't just have a launch for your core values and then think it's all going to be good. The organization is dynamic and changing all the time, new people joining, people leaving. But one of the things that incentivizes people to keep them alive and to use them, and the more they use them, the more they're going to live by them, which is what we want, and use those behaviors that the core values describes, is some sort of, nomination and award process. And some people, typically monthly, but you can pick your frequency, have some sort of nominating process where you catch people committing core values, and then some sort of public, all company monthly town hall is a great way to do it, where you then tell that story, acknowledge that person that was nominated, and if you have one, hand out an award at that moment. And so after your launch party, yeah, if you keep doing that every month, that's just one great practice for doing that. But I like people to bring them into the daily huddles, and to your weekly team meetings. If you run the entrepreneur operating system, then in your monthly your weekly, L10s, yeah, talk about them. And then that's just meetings, and I think there are formal ways you can put them on the agenda. Hey, who wants to give a shout out for a value that you saw in the last week? So shout outs is a good way to do it. But I go beyond just simply meetings too. I want people to do it on the spur of the moment when they catch someone committing a core value is just, hey, great, get it done moment there, Scotty, as Vercom would say.
So how have you seen people incorporate it into their daily huddles or weekly?
Well, for example, in the in the daily huddle, which there's a couple of pieces to that taught by Vern Harnish in Rockefeller Habits. I like his one, which is just hey, what's up? What are you doing today? A key number or metric, if you have it, for the day is great. And then, does anybody need any help? So that's the sort of 3-part agenda. But just add to that, hey, anybody got a shout out for a core value today? Or even whoever's running the meeting comes with one that he saw happen yesterday, And then in your weekly management meeting, start off with shout outs for core values. Again, that's just a great way to do it.
Yeah. What do you see as a good, I know it may vary, a good amount of time for a daily huddle?
I think the recommendation is something like, no more than 5 minutes,
Okay.
and if you've only got, 5 people in or 6 people in that meeting, you've all got plenty of time to say, really to tell them what you're focused on today.
Yeah, so just incorporate it into whether you have a daily, weekly, or even monthly meetings and incorporate that in some aspect. And so you also talk about in the book about dictating, keeping it real, and a most important speech. Okay, what do you mean by that?
Yes. So the core values speech is important, and the launch party is the first time you really get to do that. As the leader or leaders of the company, and wants to come across as polished and really believable. The employees are going to be looking at you and saying, does this feel real? And so make sure it feels real. So I like, leaders to practice and be really good at that. And then they're going to get a lot of opportunities to repeat that, which is why it's worth, getting it down. It should be used at, for example, shareholder meetings or any kind of major stakeholder meeting that's happening on some kind of frequency. People need to hear things several times, before they remember them. So when you have a major new customer or a major new vendor, or certainly internal meetings, these are all events where it really can pay to decree or to give the core value speech.
Yeah. So it sounds like, the goal is just keep reinforcing them as much as possible and whenever possible.
Yeah. Yeah. And of course, you don't just want to read the words off the page. You make, one great way to come alive is to tell a story that exemplifies that core value, a story from the folklore of the company, that helps everybody know what you mean by your core value.
Yeah. I know that you had someone react the opposite way after your launch party.
Oh, that's true.
It's supposed to, rev people up, get them excited. What happened in yours?
Well, of course, a lot of times I think that is what happens. People do get excited and get revved up, and they should certainly.
I'm not saying you're not an excited CEO, but I'll let you tell the story.
Yeah. And by the way, folks should definitely leave that meeting too with like a little handout, a little cube card or something, some kind of a
tangible
printed piece that has the values on there. No, one of the stories that we tell in the book, after we rolled out our core values at Lextech, the mobile app development company, one of the employees actually later that day resigned, pretty much right after the meeting. And it was sort of naturally a surprise to us. It wasn't the effect we had. But wow, what a blessing it was, because he saved us a lot of trouble. Because he was clearly saying, wow, okay, if this is how they describe their culture, it's not for me. And when we thought about it a bit more, one of our core values at Lextech was teamwork. And we were passionate about that. And we were always encouraging people to work as a team and to share stuff. And we realized that he had sort of resisted that. He was really a lone cowboy that liked to develop code, on his own. So he kind of elected for us, which is just one of the benefits of defining your culture with core values.
So, Will, I want to point people to go to culturezeros.com, and there's a free workbook they can get started with implementing culture in their company. But I have to ask, I'm asking one last question. This is an aside because I have to ask, because we're talking, is what did software look like 20 years ago?
Well, it looked very similar in terms of, it's just characters on a screen. But we began at Weisz Systems. We began in COBOL, which I don't know if you've even heard of COBOL, Jeremy.
No.
Have you?
No,
so
I've
COBOL
not. I thought it was like a 40-ounce beer brand or something. When you said that, I didn't know it was like a
Yeah, I'm not sure I can remember what it stands for now, but it was all caps, COBOL. That was the programming language.
Yeah.
And it still runs a lot of major systems today, but
Really?
they tend to have the systems tend to have that green screen look. Yeah, because it was, back in the sort of 80s, and certainly it was probably the major programming language. And a lot of it is still running important systems today. But our platform now is, of course, it's a SaaS platform now, and it's all on basically on the Java platform.
What did the internet look like then? Like, what was around? Search engines. What was the landscape?
Well, you can probably find better people than me to answer that question too. I think I was at business school at the time. I think the internet came out in 1993, didn't it?
Yeah.
And and so that's when the internet came about. But so our systems were running prior to that on COBOL, on a server in the office. It wasn't something that was connected.
Right. It's amazing.
Like we think of them today. Yeah. Yeah.
It's truly amazing. But it's like pioneering software.
They were using it to manage, major parts of their supply chain.
Amazing. Yeah. I had to ask. So everyone, again, go to culturezeros.com, check it out, get the workbook, and start implementing today. Thanks, Will.
Yeah. Cheers, Jeremy. Thank you.
Thanks for listening. Be sure to click subscribe, check us out on the web at culturezars.com, and we'll see you next time.